What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Week 4 NFL Power Rankings show. We're improvising a little bit here. We're winding back the clock a little bit here before the days of the fancy camera and the fancy microphone. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup in our trip and our return back home. Was in Illinois for a wedding this weekend, so currently held up in the middle of Wisconsin in a hotel recording this in a makeshift microphone setup. So hopefully I can whip up some good audio quality for you here, and hopefully can return next week back to getting these up early on Tuesdays. So thank you for your patience, and let's go ahead and get started with the Week 4 Power Rankings. Please do hit that like button if you enjoy, by the way, really helps me out. But we have a new team at the bottom as we start with our 32nd ranked team, and it's a familiar team, the Houston Texans, who started the season ranked at the bottom, and I think that's right. I mean, this team just does not have the firepower to consistently compete. We knew coming in this was going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and going into Chicago, losing this week, I think this is the right spot, and it's more of the same in that just keep evaluating the young talent, get some more looks at Dameon Pierce out there, and Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie had a big week. Like, that's all good and fun, but we know where this team is heading, and I think dead last is the right spot for them. But that doesn't really bode well for the Chicago Bears, who just escape against the worst team in the NFL after being ranked the worst team in the NFL last week. Justin Fields still has not finished a game completing more than 10 passes in a game. He hasn't hit double-digit passes in a game yet this year. The worst start passing for any quarterback since the merger. Like, this has been a mess with this offense. They do have a run game, but David Montgomery gets hurt this week. This team is no good either, so they're coming in 31. Then at number 30, the Seattle Seahawks. The further we get removed from their Week 1 triumph over the Denver Broncos, the more muddy this season looks. The offense did get going a little bit this week, but God, talk about bad rosters. I mean, there's just not a whole lot to say about the Seattle Seahawks, a team stuck in the mud right now, if you will. And then the New York Jets at number 29. I mean, I think their roster talent is better than the three teams we just previewed, but another rough loss this week, another week where the defense just can't get enough out of this team. They have players that I like, and I don't want to point too many fingers at Robert Saleh, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but at some point, this team has to show more culture and a better cohesive game plan that just, man, I'm just not buying the Robert Saleh situation at the moment. I hope he proves me wrong when they get their quarterback back, hopefully this week with Zach Wilson. Then the New York Giants at number 28. Going to round out this bottom cellar dweller tier. I do think these are the 5 clear-cut worst teams in the NFL. They lose Sterling Shepard this week, and for any other team it wouldn't be a big deal, but this team has already struggled to find playmakers out there. This offensive line, a disaster, giving up 35 pressures to the Dallas Cowboys. We know the issues this team is going through. They had a fun 2-0 start. We knew this was kind of where they were headed, and I do think they are one of the worst teams in the NFL. So let's move on to the next tier here. This is going to be my best of the less tier. Bad teams that aren't quite as bad as those bottom 5, in my opinion, for a variety of reasons. The Carolina Panthers at number 27. They pick up their first win this week, kind of saving Matt Rule's job for now. I do think he would have been fired had they lost, but they get some good things going with the offense. Baker's starting to get a little bit more comfortable. And this defense does have some really talented players, so good to see them put some things together. Still not really buying into the coaching and the cohesiveness that this team has put together so far, but good to get a tick in the win column. Then the Atlanta Falcons at number 26. You know, Arthur Smith, it's been more of the same, man. They find ways to score with this motley crew that they've put together offensively. Much better job getting Kyle Pitts going this week. Drake London out there making some plays, really nice touchdown, making some guys miss after the catch. Defensively, still not a talented roster, but they go into Seattle and beat a team that I think they are more talented than. So nice little +1 for the Falcons. Then the Washington Commanders, still getting used to that, at number 25, dropping down 2 spots Just an egregiously terrible performance from Carson Wentz. Midway through the third quarter, they had -2 passing yards. Carson Wentz takes 11 sacks this week, looked broken in the first half of that game, looked like he'd never read a defense in his life. And gosh, you cannot trust a team whose quarterback has a history of performances like that. And it's just very frustrating. I think it's going to become a deflating factor for the Washington team. Hopefully they can get Chase Young back soon and turn this defense around a little bit. But man, ugly week for Washington, as it was for the New Orleans Saints. And I view them actually fairly similar to Washington at this point, because I think both defenses have the talent. I do think the Saints defense is ultimately a good bit better. That's why I do rank them higher. But offensively, teams with, erratic quarterbacks and a bunch of explosive playmakers. So you're going to get some explosive plays in there, but you're going to get some stinkers as well. And Jameis Winston right now, I know he's dealing with a back injury, but he's just got to make better decisions with the football. He's got to play better, or the Saints season's going to be over very quickly. And I think we can begin to be even more critical of the trade that they made during the draft to get an additional first-round pick this year, as if they were a left tackle away from being a Super Bowl team. It didn't really make sense to me at the time. And if this team ends up forking over a top 10 pick to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are already steamrolling the NFL, I mean, what a trade by Howie Roseman. But that is going to round out our best of the less tier. And then we're going to get into our in the mix tier. These are kind of interesting teams that their season's far from over. They're definite upset types of teams and have some good things going for them and some bad things going for them, I suppose. But the Detroit Lions are going to start that off at number 23. Still one of the more fun teams to watch in the NFL, and I can't wait to see what they do from a play calling perspective when they get Jameson Williams in there, whenever that may be. That Jared Goff played his best, start to finish game here against the Vikings, and they were so close to picking up a big win on the road. And man, I think that would have been a season-changing effort for Detroit, but kind of some of their woes hurting them in the end. I still really think this is one of the worst defenses in the league, unable to finish that game with a 10-point lead, about 7 minutes to go after an otherwise good performance, and more of just a fun team right now than a high-ranking playoff caliber team at the moment. The Dallas Cowboys are going to climb up 4. If I thought more highly of the New York Giants, I'd probably raise them higher, but obviously I don't. I think the Giants are a bottom-tier team. I don't look at that win and say, wow, they beat an undefeated team on the road. No, I think they took care of business in a game that they frankly should win, even though they have a backup quarterback. Look, Cooper Rush played okay, and the defense is insane. But as far as on a week-to-week basis, until Dak Prescott comes back, I don't see the Cowboys as some world beater. But they've done an admirable job in these 2 weeks without Dak Prescott, and certainly have kept their season alive, to the point that they'll be very interesting when Dak gets back, with Michael Gallup, an offensive line that's played okay, and obviously this defense. So there's brighter days on the horizon. There's higher rankings to come for Dallas, and it's definitely a big week just to get that win in the win column. But moving forward until Dak gets back, I think this is an appropriate ranking for the team. The Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21. I said it coming into the year. I felt like they were probably going to start Mitch Trubisky, and it was probably going to cost them a win or two that they were going to want back at the end of the year. And I think that's pretty appropriate. And it's not like Trubisky's been horrible based on what they've asked him to do, but my problem is you can tell that they're asking him to do what they're doing because it's Mitch Trubisky, if that makes sense. Every drive feels like, okay, we're going to bootleg this thing out and then run it on second down. And it's, an overemphasis on the easy, gimmicky passing game that I just honestly think that Kenny Pickett, you drafted him in the first round for a reason. He came out in the preseason and was actually executing real NFL procedure as far as reading defenses, progressing to his second read, navigating pressure. I just don't get what we're doing here at this point. And I think Mike Tomlin deserves a lot of criticism because the rest of the team around him is not terrible. I do think the play calling has been suspect, but how much of that is a lack of faith in Trubisky to do anything beyond an elementary offense? I don't like what's going on in Pittsburgh, even if they're competitive. The New England Patriots are going to come in at number 20. And honestly, they looked good this week. They impressed me, but Mac Jones, high ankle sprain, is that going to keep him out for a couple weeks? That sounds incredibly painful. And even if he is out there, is he going to be a reduced version of himself? It sounds crazy to say, but his ability to move around in some of these quick twitch pocket navigating situations has actually been some of the best offense that the Patriots have to offer. So you don't think of Mac Jones as this mobile guy, but he's really had to lean into that these last few weeks, and it was a big part of his game as a rookie as well. So yeah, that injury is a little bit of a deflator, but they did get the passing game going. They're competitive against the Ravens. Going to get passed up by a couple teams that impressed me a little bit more as well. But yeah, Patriots hanging in there. I thought they played an okay game this week. The Raiders at number 19, dropping down 5 spots. This week was the most disappointing loss of the 3 so far this season. I mean, last week I thought they played okay and just kind of choked at the end. Week 1, they lost to a fired-up Chargers team. But this week, to drop to 0-3 against a Titans team that had been toothless to this point in the season, and this team just, man, they're not very good. They have good players, but there's so many holes on this team. I look at the defense with so many spots back there. You've got a couple D-backs really getting abused in coverage. Jonathan Abrams continues to just be a liability out there. Offensively, Derek Carr, it's not that he's playing horrible. It's just that he's not playing good football. He's playing just such average quarterback play, and they need so much more from him, and they're not getting it. So I don't know what the answer is for the Raiders. They've had a pretty tough schedule so far, so their season's not done, and it helps that the AFC hasn't been quite the juggernaut that maybe it looked like coming into the year, to the point that maybe they can overcome an 0-3 start, but God, they just have so much stuff to clean up. But I definitely wouldn't want to necessarily play these guys either. So they're a tough team to rank, as are the Tennessee Titans. They're going to climb up 6 spots this week. This team, this has been their motto for years now. The second you count them out, they go and prove you wrong. And that's exactly what they did this week. They go back to their roots. They get Derrick Henry grounding and pounding. Robert Woods looks healthy out there. They clean up some stuff defensively. A really good game plan to double Devontae Adams and force Derek Carr to beat him elsewhere. So coaching does matter in this league, and the Titans have one of the best staffs in the league. So a big week for them to get their season back on track, and definitely good to see that offense look pretty comfortable out there. Tannehill still threw an ugly pick 6 in this game that almost invited the Raiders back in to the game. But overall, a good week for the Titans, moving up 6 spots this week. All right, number 17, the Arizona Cardinals. Really not a whole lot to say about them. Defense still stinks. They lost to a better Rams team this week. This is a team that's just overly dependent on Kyler Murray and his playmaking, and just not trustworthy on a week-to-week basis, but they're still a threat as well. So I'm sorry, I just don't have a whole lot to add to the Cardinals conversation. They feel very stuck in neutral at the moment. It was a tough game this week, and they didn't really compete too well. Okay, then the Indianapolis Colts at number 16. Them and the Titans, in my opinion, 2 of the better cultures, 2 of the better coached teams in the league, and they responded this week in a big way, kind of saving their season. Jacksonville's heating up. They said, all right, we cannot start 0-3, and both teams took care of business against good AFC West opponents at home. The Colts beating the Chiefs this week. And, they had some things turn in their favor. The Chiefs missed some field goals. They muffed the punt. Like, just a really bad special teams performance by the Kansas City Chiefs. Ultimately was the difference maker. You can't watch that game and tell me that the Colts were truly a better football team, but they got the job done and got the offense going a little bit. They got some of these rookies going, Alec Pierce and Jelani Woods. Still a lot to figure out for the Colts. This is not okay, our season's back on track and we're the number 10 ranked team that TFG had them at coming into the year. No, they still have way too much to clean up before we take them too seriously in a game that they did have some fortune go their way. We'll see how they can continue to build upon that moving forward, though. All right, then we have an interesting tier coming up. We have 5 teams in this something's not right tier. I think these teams are poised for playoff appearances potentially. There's 14 teams that make it. We got 15 teams left. But all 5 of these teams have some pretty major red flags or issues with their team right now. So we got the Minnesota Vikings at 15, and for me, it's just the new coaching staff here. Like, defensively, I feel like their middle of the field zones are so porous, and offensively, they're still trying to kind of figure out an element of consistency when they can't go to Justin Jefferson. That's been the last 2 weeks. They got some good stuff going. Kirk had a good bounce-back week at home this week, so it's definitely not horrible for the Vikings, but let's face it, for the majority of that game, were getting beat up by the Lions. So, yes, they won. They were at home, 6.5-point favorites. They pulled it off in the end, but certainly not an impressive win for me for the Minnesota Vikings. Then the Cleveland Browns at 14. They actually have kind of impressed me, honestly. I feel like Stefanski has just done a really good job of identifying who this team's going to need to be until, obviously, Deshaun Watson gets back. And I got to give Jacoby Brissett a lot of credit as well. But, Kevin Stefanski just running the crap out of the football, but dialing up some creative passing concepts as well. They really got Amari Cooper going this week. It was good to see that. And yeah, man, the Browns are feisty, but they're the worst quarterbacked team probably amidst anyone ranked above them, I suppose, or anyone in the top half of the league. So that's a holdup with the Browns, but they've impressed. Then we got the San Francisco 49ers coming in at 13, and their issue is the offensive line. I mean, Trent Williams is dealing with a broken wrist. When you're an offensive lineman, that's obviously a major issue, and the rest of that offensive line is just so bad. You can make a case they have the worst offensive line in the NFL right now. It's teams like the Raiders and the Bears, we thought it was going to be them coming in, but they've actually played okay, unlike the Niners. So Jimmy Garoppolo, not a quarterback you want dealing with that amount of pressure. I think it is hurting their run game up front. No Trent Williams, obviously. Laken Tomlinson, no longer there. Alex Mack no longer there. So they are dealing with some newly inherited line play issues in San Francisco that I think is really hurting the floor of that offense. And it is all about the floor when you have Jimmy Garoppolo. So definitely worried about things in San Francisco. That said, their defense is remarkable. I think they're right there with the best defenses in the NFL. So that they're going to keep them in games. You got Kyle Shanahan and those playmakers, but it's been a rough offense to watch with Jimmy Garoppolo. At least it was this week against my number 12 ranked team, against the Denver Broncos, coming in at number 12, dropping down one spot. I just don't know what to do with Denver quite yet. There's a lot of teams struggling, right? If you look behind them, I don't know if there's a lot of these teams that I would necessarily pick to beat the Broncos in a neutral site. I still think Russell Wilson can run around and make plays happen situationally. This defense has actually played really well. I think that's been something we've overlooked as the offense has kind of stolen the headlines, and something that Twitter clearly has been complaining about how bad this offense has looked the majority of the season, and that's all true. But Russ has still been able to make some plays happen, and you got to credit is it Evero, the defensive coordinator? I think has done a really good job with this defense. So they're definitely hanging around. They're 2-1. If they can just clean up some stuff offensively, I still think this is a playoff team, or at least a playoff caliber team. So yeah, I guess that's all I got on Denver. We're gonna have to kind of continue to evaluate this new look Broncos team as we go. But it certainly has not been clean with Nathaniel Hackett coming in. There's been a lot of coaching question marks with how he's looked out the gate. And the Chargers coming in at number 11. I don't want to pile on too much because I know Herbert's hurt and they're dealing with so many injuries right now. And surely the injuries are a huge part, the biggest part, rather, of them dropping down 7 spots. You've got Rashawn Slater done for the year. I don't even have words to describe how much that sucks. I mean, this Chargers team they're always the team that suffers a major, back-breaking, season-changing injury year after year after year, and Rashawn Slater absolutely is that. You're talking about one of the best left tackles in the game, a team that already has right tackle problems. Now they're going to have left tackle problems. for their drop back passing game, that's game breaking. They're already out Keenan Allen. Joey Bosa looks like he's going to miss a few weeks. It's just been brutal, the amount of injuries they've suffered, a familiar fate for the Chargers there. But all that said, I'm still not sold on Brandon Staley. I just think there's so many questionable coaching decisions, whether it's schematically or personnel, or now like fourth down decision makings have been in question this year. It's, Chargers fans probably aren't even watching at this point because it's just been such a depressing week for the Chargers. But for a team that had Super Bowl expectations coming in, I honestly don't feel comfortable saying that this team could win a Super Bowl. And it's not Justin Herbert's fault. He made some great plays this week, and he's playing hurt. But it's just not a good look for the Chargers right now. All right, we do have a new tier coming up. This is my favorite tier this week. It's what's behind door number one. You're at a fancy show. They're showing off some new tricks, and you're interested, but you want to know what is to come, what is behind the door. And this team is going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think clearly to me have proved to be let's just say they've looked the furthest from what I projected them to be. And it's really in every phase. Not that I so much doubted Trevor Lawrence, but my God, he's incredible. And I tweeted this morning, but like watching this Chargers game and watching what he's done out there, I can't really give you any good reason why he isn't one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL already, other than I guess it feels too early to say that. But he's making quick decisions. He's processing defenses at a high level. He's got this remarkable arm and can extend plays out of structure. Like, reminds me a lot of prime Andrew Luck. And we knew what prime Andrew Luck did for a much worse Colts team back in the day. So, that's just a starting point. But beyond that, I doubted that Doug Peterson would come in here and evolve the offense. I think the Jags have been easily one of the 3 best coached offenses in the league this year. And that is, I will hold my hand up and say that is just not what I thought was going to happen. And that's been game-changing. They have answers for everything. And defensively, the new hire, running Todd Bowles' defense here, it's working. Like these stunts with Trayvon Walker and Arden Key and Josh Allen and Dwayne Smoot, like all these guys, they're rotating, they're running cross stunts, they're getting after the quarterback much better than I anticipated. So scheming and coaching across the board has been such a pleasant surprise, and the personnel as well. The offensive line is playing well. Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram have been awesome. Defensively, Trayvon Walker's been better than I thought. Like, I just was so off on this Jags team. I'll at least say that I spotted it early and can, be happy with myself there. But God, this has been fun to watch across the board. And the Jags are legit, man. They went into LA and smacked down the LA Chargers, and that is no easy feat. So good on you, Jags fans. Let's see if they can keep it going here. Another tough game this week against the Eagles, right? So then we have the Cincinnati Bengals at number 9. They get things back on track. Nice get-right week against the New York Jets. Joe Burrow is one of those guys that I just think he's just such a confidence player, if that makes sense. I think getting that confidence going is going to be so big for him. Trusting these playmakers. T. Higgins was so good this week. Got to stop taking these hits. Limit those concussions a little bit. But, God, this passing game is fun when it's working. You got Jamar Chase. Tyler Boyd was great this week. And obviously T. So, yeah, we know what this offense is capable of. It's a very sound defense. And I think the Bengals are back on track for about where we viewed them coming into the year. Then the Miami Dolphins, another team that is obviously outperforming my projections on them. And he's just finding a way to win this week, kind of in the traditional Dolphins game script type of ways. It was a little bit of, defense and scrapping it out late. And, yeah, they got the job done, man. Tua played pretty well, I thought. And these playmakers made just enough plays. But it really was more about the defense this week with a great game plan against Josh Allen. It was just a chess match, such a fun game to watch back and forth. I felt like the Dolphins' defense got theirs with some of their zero blitz and some of their disguised coverages that really confused Josh Allen, forcing 6 turnover-worthy plays this week. And, of course, Josh Allen got his as well. But, yeah, just such a well-coached team on both offense and defense. And, yeah, got to credit everyone really across the board for the Miami Dolphins keeping things going. No, they're not the number one team in football. Not going to go that far. The Bills dealing with a lot of injuries. The Bills still had, I think, about double the amount of yards as the Dolphins had. But, definitely a big week for the Miami Dolphins. Don't want to undersell it. Then we got the Philadelphia Eagles climbing up 2. And at number 7 for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's just like the more and more we see it, the more and more I'm going to be buying this team as a Super Bowl contender. It's been 3 outstanding weeks of Jalen Hurts. If you have not seen my film breakdown of Jalen Hurts yet, definitely encourage you guys to go check that out. Put it up last Thursday night. But yeah, man, he's playing so well in structure. He brings all of the playmaking with his feet. The accuracy has been so good. And all of that just allows him to maximize these incredible playmakers that he has. Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, just dominant, elite wide receiver duo performance. And then, oh, by the way, they have Dallas Goedert underneath. Like, this is just an embarrassment of riches for this team, not just offensively with the playmakers, but the O-line is great, and the defense has been balling out. So much depth and a variety of talent on that side of the ball. Got to shout out Shane Steichen, who I think is doing a great job as a play caller. It's just been really roses and butterflies, and I guess it's rainbows and butterflies. Whatever you want to say, it's been all of it. They've stayed healthy. They've really steamrolled their way through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. Tough match this week against the Jags, and I think it's safe to say both teams are legit at this point, but it will be fun to see who comes out on top in that matchup. All right, and then we have our top tier. The Bills no longer kind of in a tier of their own, I think, with how Micah Hyde got hurt and some of their deficiencies this week showing up for the first time this year. So, yeah, this is our top tier of Super Bowl contenders. Not that anybody behind this tier couldn't win the Super Bowl, but I think these are the clear cut, should be in the playoffs and should be in the mix in the last 4 games of the season or so. But yeah, the Baltimore Ravens, I really am buying into what's going on there. I think Lamar, his game has just changed, man. He's put on weight in a good way. I think it's just helped him play a little bit more of a sustainable brand of football. He feels more comfortable standing in the pocket and delivering the ball to me than he has in the past. He's getting these receivers going much better. But beyond that, it has actually added a huge wrinkle to their QB run game. You know, the read option has been such a big part of what the Ravens do, but by him beefing up, they've almost entirely only ran him on inverted reads, where he's actually the inside option and the running back is more of an outside zone threat. And it sounds minor, but it's actually changed this offense in a fundamental way, because teams love to obviously run contain on Lamar, and they love to run scrape exchanges where you're going to actually crash that defensive end who's supposed to read the quarterback, and then you're going to scrape that linebacker over the top, and basically Lamar on a traditional read option would be walking right into a trap. But with an inverted read, it breaks all of those rules, because if the defense is going to stay on contain, they're actually going to be containing the running back, and it's Lamar bursting up the middle for what we've seen now, feels like every week, like 60-yard chunk runs right up the middle. And I think having him beef up and not being scared of him maybe taking, little dings and knocks up the middle as a more slender quarterback, he's got a power running style about him now that's much more functional. So it's kind of changed their offense in a fundamental way. And it's been really fun to see them kind of evolve this offense in creative new ways. And I'm really tired of the Greg Roman slander at this point, because I just feel like we've seen them build the perfect scheme around Lamar, and they've adapted it several times. This offense is humming right now. Defensively, I do think they still need to clean some stuff up. The secondary struggled again this week, so that's a question mark for them. But in general, I mean, the Ravens are a really difficult team to beat right now with how explosive this offense is, led by Lamar, who's a top MVP candidate. Then we have the LA Rams just kind of hanging around after that Week 1 slaughter by the Bills. They've had a couple of games that they've been the better team. They've looked like the defending Super Bowl champs, and maybe we're sleeping on them a little bit. They haven't exactly faced the best pass rushes the last couple weeks with the Cardinals and the Falcons. I would probably say those are bottom 5 pass rushes in the NFL. If you're going to stop this Rams offense, I think it is by getting through this offensive line. So I just don't think the offense has been tested in the way that they were week 1, and it's allowed them to thrive and do what they want to do. Inversely, they haven't played the most explosive offenses either, so they've done a good job letting those guys get to work. Yeah, they're kind of rolling, and I'm excited to see them play a good team and a good pass rush this Monday night against the Niners, a team that has given them fits. So should be a fun one. Then we got the Bucs at number 4. Obviously going to be big to get Mike Evans back. They're hoping to get Godwin and Donovan Smith. The reinforcements are coming, and that's going to be huge for this team. I mean, this defense is still, I think, the best defense in the NFL. Did a just great job holding down the Packers offense in the second half. Really, after they forced a fumble on the 1-yard line, totally swung the game. Could have been 21 points allowed, and that was it. The Packers offense didn't score after that. So, this defense is going to keep them around, and more often than not, you give Tom Brady that many chances, and it's going to work. This team's going to win, especially when they get Mike Evans and their offensive line back. So I'm not worried about the Bucs. They lost a close game against a really good Packers team that's coming in at number 3. Such a big win for them. For them to walk out of the first 3 weeks having to go to Minnesota without pretty much their entire offense, and then having to go to Tampa in week 3 before they can get, David Bakhtiari fully back healthy, who is finally out there. So good to see him rotating. Hopefully they can get their tackles back moving forward and get Christian Watson back into this offense. Romeo Doubs looking pretty good. This is pretty much playing out for the Packers like you could have hoped. The defense has settled in and looks really great. And offensively, they lose Sammy Watkins here week 3. That's maybe 2 weeks less than you were expecting from Sammy Watkins, but it's allowed opportunities for Romeo Doubs to get involved, who looked great this week. The separation was there, beating good press man coverage against one of the best secondaries in the league. And Christian Watson hasn't really been able to get healthy, but hopefully he can provide that deep threat. Allen Lazard, I'll even tip my cap to him, has played his role within this offense and done it well. Not a number 1 wide receiver, but he's been a solid starting caliber guy out there. So yeah, Packers getting some things going. Then the Kansas City Chiefs at number 2, staying put there. I'm not necessarily worried about them. They've had a couple sloppy games in a row. This has kind of been what the Chiefs have done in years past. I don't want to make too many excuses for them, but they've just shown so many times that they're going to have a few games, they're going to have a few stretches where they're just a little bit off. And I guess you wouldn't say that about most teams. Maybe that's biased towards the Chiefs. I don't know. But we know what Mahomes does. We know what Kelsey does. If it weren't for the special teams, they would have went into a pissed-off Indianapolis team and still won. So, yeah, I'm just not worried about the Chiefs. I'm not. And then the Bills are going to stay put at number 1 for me. So many injuries that they're just going to have to kind of shuffle through and figure some stuff out. I do think the Micah Hyde injury is significant. I think it showed up this week. No Jordan Poyer this week either. You had 2 young, inexperienced safeties back there for a scheme that demands communication from those safeties and demands versatility from those safeties. To lose Micah Hyde is a huge, huge impact on that defense. And I don't think it's as simple as, at least they're getting Tre'Davious White back, because the corners haven't been really a problem. It's been the safeties, or at least it was this week for Buffalo. So I don't think it's as simple as, Tre'Davious White is coming. No, I think that is a big schematic change for them, and I think that's reflected in me removing the tier gap difference that I had between the Bills and the rest of the league. They are more vulnerable now. Offensively, I'm not really worried, though. I will say the offensive line is a question mark, but Josh Allen has been so good at neutralizing that and making it not an issue. But, yeah, they're still the best team, and I don't think you want to just forget about what this team did the first 2 weeks of the season, where they just steamrolled the defending Super Bowl champs and the defending 1 seed in the AFC that they showed this week can still play some good football. So they'll spin some things back the other way, I think, and I still think they're the best team in the NFL, despite losing in Miami this week. So there's your Week 4 power rankings. Really hope you guys enjoyed and we'll be back to the regular expected quality on these things moving forward. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did, and we'll see you later. Peace out.